Hello, and hopefully today finds you well here at the intersection of faith and logic. Restoration will focus. This is episode 1.5, the series in the beginning. It really belongs between the first and second episode, and hated to do it, but I really couldn't record the first one again without having to do them all. So this is kind of thrown in there as an extra. I wanted to address one of the bigger problems with the old Earth theory that is probably one of the strongest components of the young Earth theory, and that would have to be the idea of genealogies. If we consider that the old Earth theory, it wasn't talking about literal days, but talking about epochs, then it would say there was a time period where there was just a sun and some water, and the sun dried up some water and we got some land, and then things began to spontaneously generate, and over periods we had, let's say, 10 million, 100 million years we went from water to land. Another 100 million years we went from land to I don't know, aquatic life. Another 100 million years we went to creeping things. Another 100 million years to flying. If we said that each one of the days were just a time period, and that they were not specific days, as people that believe in the old Earth theory would have to say, then the problem really becomes the genealogy. We can track Jesus' genealogy all the way back to Adam, and it does actually when it does Mary's genealogy, it tracks it all the way back to Adam. And so Jesus is able to track his genealogy to Adam, and there are many Jewish people here who are alive today, who are Orthodox and of the tradition, who also can track their lineage all the way back to Adam and Eve. And if you can track all the way back to Adam and Eve, and it's spelled out for us, with a personal interactive God that doesn't seem to be there, although the argument could be made that he was there, that it just took a long time to create. And, I don't know how long, although Psalm says God spoke and the universe leapt into existence, and it doesn't seem like it would be a long time. But the problem is the genealogy. The other problem, of course, we talked about before, and that would be the idea of the original sin. If it was a million years to create light, and a million years to create land, and a million years to get aquatic life, and another million years to get trees, and another million years to get animals, and another million years to get to people. If all of these things happen, then if we go through the days in the Bible, and we have 7 days, okay, we have the, funny enough, scientists would agree with the steps of creation. But if we worked our way through, that would mean that on the sixth day, that sixth time period, that million years or whatever time period it is, God was creating. Which one was Adam? Was he at the end of the period? Was he at the beginning of the period? And if we say that God created Adam on the sixth day, and then on the seventh day God rested, that means that after the creation of man, there must have been another time period equal to the six that came before it, another million years. So Adam has to be at least a million plus. And if it's 100 million, he's 100 million plus years ago. That means it took 100 million to 200 million years for Jesus to come. That's quite a long time. That's quite a long time. And that's where the problem is. It's not logical that we've been waiting for 100 million or 200 million years since Adam, and if we have been waiting for 200 million years, then do we really think God's word means anything? He says, I'm going to punish you for what you did, and he waits 200 million years, and he hasn't punished anyone yet? That would not seem to be a God I would worry about. Mm-hmm. And it makes you wonder then about resurrection and all the other things. The old earth theory has that issue to begin with. The ideas of the time periods and the epics, and how can we have an epic after man, and then later he's walking in the garden with Adam. That would put Adam at 200 million, 300 million years old. It's not logical. It's just not logical. And so the days of creation give the old earth the problem. And the genealogy does as well. If you can track somebody all the way back to Adam, and Adam was made on the sixth day, and there was 100, 200 million years in between, then how can you track yourself back? And so we can't have a day of rest coming after the creation of man unless it's future. Now, in the future, we do have the idea of a rest. But, yeah, that's in paradise. That's we see it in Hebrews. Hebrews talks a lot about the idea of rest. How shall we enter into God's rest if we neglect so great a salvation? Hebrews 3, 2 or 3. So the old earth doesn't work. It doesn't work logically. It doesn't work when you put it into effect. It sounds nice at first. Yeah, epics, periods. Oh, it sounds really good. But then the idea of original sin, the idea of Jesus, and genealogies, all of that gives that theory, it makes it worthless. We can't be living in an old earth. We just can't. So, again, it moves us to the young earth theory, and the gap theory. And the gap theory I'm going to cover a little bit in the next episode here. But the young earth theory seems to have a lot going for it. We can trace our genealogy all the way back to Adam. And so that would lead us to believe that, hey, the earth has been around since Adam. The problem there is archaeological evidence. I began my career really in the idea of anthropology and archaeology, study of cultures past and present, and we do definitely see periods when things begin and periods when things end, and we have carbon-14, and we have all these other ways to measure the things that God's created, ways for us to measure and try to understand God's creation, to try to use it to our benefit. And when we look, we find dinosaur bones. Again, there's the possibility that they were hunted to extinction. And I always hold that as an idea, that possibly they were hunted to extinction. But we're going to see problems come up later on. Now, there are still places where this theory, the young earth theory, a lot of people still hold to it. And they say carbon-14 is flawed, that there's problems with it. They would also say things like, well, when we bury our dead, we dig holes. Maybe they dug holes and they buried these bones, and when they did, it created layers because they buried so far deep. But we wouldn't find them all at the same layer. We wouldn't find them all with the same characteristics. We wouldn't find them all embedded the same way. The archaeological evidence tells us something greater. It tells us that the earth is a lot older. And why does that bother you? If the earth is older, that really means that makes a lot of more sense in a lot of ways. God's been around 1 billion years, and we're kind of only on a new earth if we've only been here for 5 or 10,000. That's pretty new. So what was God doing the rest of the time? He doesn't tell us. It's really none of our business. And that's really what happens at the beginning. God tells us in the beginning he created the heavens and the earth. Then they became without form and void. Then God began creating for us. And really from verse 3 all the way through to Revelation 22:21, it's about us. It's about mankind and about our role in God's relationship. And so to say that God created things in the beginning and then the earth became without form and void, that things happened here, I think is the most logical. And the next tape is going to explain a little more why. We're going to take a look then at the idea of the when God created. And we're going to go through all the questions. Where, how, and why.